This is From Justin to Kane, a podcast where Mike Robertson and Bob LaRue watch one critically acclaimed film and one terrible film and talk about how they are the same. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of From Justin to Kane. I'm Bob.
And I'm Mike.
This episode is unconventional, isn't it, Mike?
Somewhat, yeah. I would say it's unconventional somewhat, yeah.
The films we've chosen, well, one of them is pretty average, I guess. It's a normal film. But the other one is unique.
Yeah. I don't know which one you're describing.
I'm talking about Fred Ott's Sneeze.
Oh, yes, right. Yeah, we really challenged ourselves with this one. How long is it?
It's 12 seconds? It's 45 frames long.
I thought it was 5 seconds.
So they definitely weren't going 24 frames a second, but it's 45 frames a second, and they patented it in 1890 something, right? What year was it?
Hey, you're stepping on my toes here.
Sorry, man. I'm stepping on your nose.
Yeah, it was, I don't remember when it was patented, somewhere around 1895.
Mm-hmm.
It was released in 1894. So it was filmed sometime in 1893, I guess.
Would it be a year turnaround on a 45-frame movie?
No, but it was released January 9th, 1894. And so it would have been filmed probably and processed sometime a week prior to that. So,
which would be the year before.
It may have been the first thing that they did when they got back from the holidays, assuming that they took a holiday. Anyway. There's lots to get into about this movie.
How good of an employer was Edison?
Well, we haven't given anybody any context, so we're just jumping right into it.
Yeah, we are. Okay.
That's fine. I mean, that's fine.
Great. Let's contextualize these movies then.
Yeah.
So okay.
I'll start.
So what are the two movies?
So okay. So the two movies, that we're doing this week are Fred Ott's Sneeze, which was written, directed, and shot by William K.L. Dixon, and produced by the Edison Manufacturing Company, and featuring the titular Fred Ott. And the other movie is called, points at Bob.
It is called Airplane Mode, and it is starring a whole slew of social media influencers. It was co-directed by two people, David Dinetz and Dylan Trussell. Mm-hmm. And it is this week's bad film. Let me tell you, Airplane Mode was hard to sit through.
Yes, I watched it on 1.5 and sometimes 2 times speed.
And I watched it at its normal speed, and Mike told me after I finished watching it that I should watch it at a quicker speed. And I'm upset he didn't tell me before the movie had ended, because it was hard to sit through.
The comedy, I gotta say, the comedy works better at 1.5 speed for sure. It kind of plays in.
It was so hectic and high energy at normal speed.
I know, it was very hectic and high energy. So imagine watching that at almost 2 times the speed. It was almost like an art film at that point.
Yeah.
You're bearing the lead here. Why is this film interesting or important to anybody? It's not really, but
the film
but
are you talking about Airplane Mode?
Yeah. Who's the star?
So it's starring Logan Paul, who I found out, actually, without researching on the internet. So he got famous on Vine, and then Vine dried up. I'm sure he's on TikTok. I wouldn't know, but it seems like a natural move for him. But he's big on social media now.
That's
after
right.
Vine ended. But his famousness, because he's famous for doing the splits, and he does a lot of stunts, I guess.
Yeah, and he's an MMA guy now.
My family told me this.
Yeah, that's funny.
I don't know it for a fact. But I was explaining this film, actually, to my brother-in-law and my sister, and they were both I said, some guy named Logan is in this movie. And they were like, do you mean Logan Paul? And I was like, yeah, Logan Paul. And they both knew who he was, and I had never heard of him. So I felt like a dinosaur.
Well, yeah, this really evidences how old of a person I am in particular, because I don't know anything I didn't recognize any of the people in the movie except for Logan Paul, but only because I knew of him from the Suicide Forest thing.
What's that?
Oh, I'll get it. We can get into that. Actually, no, we don't need to get into it. I'll just tell you right now.
I guess there's segments to this show.
There's segments. No, but he did a video on YouTube where he went to this Japanese suicide forest and filmed stuff, and he got in a lot of trouble because it was insensitive. So
Vice also did a video on the suicide forest in Japan.
yeah.
And they didn't get in trouble.
Well, he wasn't doing a video on it in terms of this is the history of this forest. This is why this is culturally interesting. It was, oh my God, look at that dead guy. You know, kind of like that.
Oh, I see. It's like doing there's like social media influencers who do planks in front of concentration camps, old concentration camp museums, which is very distasteful.
Oh, 100%. But as I was saying, this kind of ages me because it shows how old I am that I didn't really recognize any of the social media people in this movie, but I know who Fred Ott is. So
yeah, it does age you, doesn't it?
It ages me as being at least 135 years old.
Well, when you say, and I'm air quoting here for the listeners, I know who Fred Ott is. That means like somebody says his name and you're like, oh yeah, he was the senior whatever of the Edison company. He spearheaded these projects. I know lots about Fred Ott. Or is it, I've seen that 45 frame movie, Fred Ott Sneezes?
Both.
Oh, wow. Okay, wow. You're so educated, Mike.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so Fred Ott Sneeze. Should we just get into some context? We
might as well. This is going to be the least segueable episode we've ever done.
You'd be surprised.
Okay, shit.
You'd be surprised. There's a lot of connections between these two movies, believe it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's contextualize them then.
So
do you want to start with your masterpiece?
Yeah, let's go in chronological order. So Fred Ott Sneeze is a film released January 9th, 1894, produced by the Edison Manufacturing Company, as I mentioned, written, directed, and shot by William K.L. Dixon, and featuring Fred Ott as the star. It has a running time of 5.
Is he still alive?
Goodness, no. He would have to be 150.
Yeah, but it's like 2020. Aren't people going to live to like 200 now?
No, I don't think anybody will. Yeah, I think I'll be dead in 20 years.
Oh, right.
All the humans will. The planet will outlive us all.
Okay, well, I'm glad we got that over with. Yeah. Anyways, continue.
But Fred Ott will return from the grave in a hilarious twist, and he will become the last man on Earth. And he will look around at the barren wasteland and say, "Who among you can capture my sneeze on film?" And there will be no reply.
It's like a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
That guy during the nuclear holocaust, and he loves being alone, and he just wants to read, and then he's in a bank safe, and then the whole world blows up, and then he comes out and he's the only survivor. And he's like, finally, I can just read. And then he steps on his reading glasses.
Oh, right. Yeah, that classic bit.
Yeah, it's very beautiful and painful, similar to Frank Ott's Sneeze as a film.
Truly. So Fred Ott, not Frank Ott. I always thought it was Frank Ott up until today.
I have many texts from you saying Frank Ott, and before this episode, I watched The Sneeze, and I typed in Frank Ott, and I got several vlog videos about people sneezing on other people in public. So
there you go.
It was a bit of some detective work had to be done in order for me to find this movie. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, so Fred Ott was an employee of Thomas Edison. He worked for the laboratory in the 1890s. His likeness does appear in 2 of the earliest surviving motion pictures. Number 1, this movie called Fred Ott Sneeze, or The Sneeze, also known as Edison Kinetoscopic Record of a Sneeze. And then another movie called Fred Ott Holding a Bird, which I have not seen, but I understand is a more exciting sequel to this.
Oh, that's exciting.
It's like a nature film.
Is he just holding it, or does it... Have you read the film synopsis of it? Do you know what happens? What's the plot? Does the bird come and land on his finger? Is it already there when the camera starts rolling? Does it fly away? What type of bird is it?
I don't know.
Wow, you did very little research, didn't you?
I didn't do any research on Fred Ott holding a bird. No, I'm sorry.
Damn it. Okay.
But, well... I bet it's not an eagle or a hawk or anything. So in Fred Ott Sneeze, the synopsis is he takes a pinch of snuff, which causes him to sneeze, and that is the whole film. It's 5 or 6 seconds long. It's him just basically putting something in his face and then sneezing on film, just because they were like, what should we do? And he's like, I don't know. Well, why don't you sneeze? okay. And then that's probably the whole dialogue for it was kind of improvised film, it seems like. It's one of the first films, one of the first improv films. They did play Zip Zap Zop before it.
So like he's the precursor to John Cassavetes, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
He's Edison was the original Cassavetes. I guess in this case it wasn't Edison who directed it. It was William K.L. Dixon. So he also was an employee of Edison. So a little history about our friend Fred, our boy. So he worked with Edison in 1874, and he worked there until Edison's death in 1931. So he worked for Edison for a good, what is the math on that? 60 years? That can't be. Maybe.
Wait, sorry. What was the first year? When did he start working there?
1874.
So 74 to 31?
Yeah.
So it would have been 56 years, 57 years?
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah, that's especially since I don't think pensions were around. That's amazing that he was so loyal to one company.
Yeah, well, Edison was changing the game, on a lot of things. He was inventing all kinds of crap. So,
it was pretty lit over there, wasn't it?
It was totally lit.
Oh, fuck. All right, continue. Sorry.
We should add some actual air horns.
I think we should.
That should be a recurring.
How many light bulb jokes can we make in this fucking episode?
I don't know. You're a bright guy. You can tell me.
Oh, shit. That was funny for two reasons. Funny because it's a light bulb joke, and funny because you didn't mean it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just trying to hurt my feelings, and it worked. Anyways, continue.
So, they worked at a research facility in Manhattan, and Ott and Edison worked on the creation of the electric streetlight together as one of their main collaborations. That's a big thing. We have Ott to thank for the electric streetlight. He also...
you ought to have thanked him.
Yeah, so they worked together until Edison died, and then Ott himself died in 1936 in New Jersey, in his house.
Were they buried side by side in a cemetery?
No, I think Edison was ground up into snuff, and then Ott, his tribute,
sneezed him out.
Yeah, so because
that's so gross.
Because Fred Ott took some snuff into his nose, and then it made him sneeze. This is the first snuff film.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the first snuff film.
Wow.
So
they really trailblazers on so many levels. What is snuff as a substance?
So Google says it is a Slipknot song. That's the first thing that comes up.
Okay, very helpful, very helpful.
The song Snuff by Slipknot. Second thing that comes up is a tobacco. It's a smokeless tobacco made from ground or pulverized tobacco leaves. It is inhaled or snuffed into the nasal cavity, delivering a swift hit of nicotine and a lasting flavored scent, especially if flavoring has been blended with the tobacco. Oh,
interesting. So you can snuff something, like a verb. And by that, it means quickly inhale.
Yes.
So is snort a derivative of snuff?
It is.
Well, I thought snuff was cocaine because cocaine was a kosher thing in the 1890s. That was a fucking thing prescribed to people for whatever reason. So it's kind of interesting that it wasn't cocaine, but cocaine doesn't always make you sneeze. You know what I mean? But snuff does.
And you would know, you friggin' druggie, you cokehead.
Yeah. That one time when I went to Woodstock.
Yeah.
97 Woodstock.
Yeah.
Just kidding. That was the year I was born.
So Fred Ott's sneeze is in the public domain, obviously, because it's so friggin' old. And you can, so that means you can use it in your movies, similar to how every bad horror film, has people watching Night of the Living Dead before they get killed.
Right.
They're like, oh, there's zombies happening. Let's watch Night of the Living Dead because it's something that we can put in our movie for free.
Isn't it a bold choice that bad horror movies put a great one in as intellectual property to ground that world in the real world?
Yeah, that
you
is
know what I mean.
That's
a bold move.
It happens quite a lot. Not only with Night of the Living Dead.
It's if The Room was playing the Titanic on a 2001 DVD player.
Yeah.
In Tommy Wiseau's apartment, it'd be like, wow, I just want to watch the movie they're watching, not this movie.
Yeah. I mean,
very meta.
So many movies did do that. I watched a movie recently. Don't even remember the name of the movie. Don't remember who's in it, but they were watching The Thing.
Oh shit!
This was a movie. This was a movie that came out last year, and it was not very good. And they were watching The Thing because it was like thematically similar to the movie that I was watching.
Right.
And it was.
Well, you know what's interesting about Airplane Mode is the only in-flight movie they have for the 18-hour flight to Australia from LA is Fred Ott's Sneeze.
Oh my God.
As a GIF, because they're all influencers and everything's internet based, but it's a GIF of him sneezing. Yeah.
That's kind of wild. That's amazing.
Yeah, you probably didn't even know that when you suggested these two movies.
I did not know.
Yeah. And they never show it, but they allude to it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They insinuate that Fred Ott's Sneeze is the in-flight entertainment.
Well, there's a scene in the movie where everybody's on their phone, like annoyingly so, and they're all just watching a GIF of Fred Ott sneezing.
Well, yeah.
So I have a couple more little factoids. So
Nice.
Edison, he's not the only guy who invented movies. Also, a bunch of other people all over the world who were working on movies at the same time. So don't, get your butt in a bunch thinking that Edison was the only guy. Edison was largely inspired by Edward Muybridge. And he invented a thing called the zoopraxiscope, which unsurprisingly the name didn't catch on, but people have most likely seen like the horse in motion. It's like a little animated horse going around on a little spinny thingy. That's not a zoopraxiscope. A zoopraxiscope, I think, is a projection. So Edison was like, oh, projection, that's where it's at. It's not just these like little tricks of like motion going around in a circle.
You're describing a zoetrope.
So yeah, Edison was like all about the projection, and he was like, you know what, movies are going to be big. So he was like trying so hard just to get movies out, to be the movie guy. So they created a kinetograph. Dixon perfected it. The director of Fred Ott Sneeze. So it was Dixon's like his baby. Dixon, as a director, his previous films were entitled Monkey Shines 1, 2, and 3, which they later remade in the 80s as horror films. That was a joke, but there's horror films called Monkey Shines. Monkey Shines number 2 is also known as Dixon Greeting, and you can still find it today. So it's one of the earlier surviving movies from this studio, I guess you can call it. Oh, well, actually, funny you should say studio, and by you I mean me.
I was thinking it though.
Yeah. Funny you should think that. I hear Bob people. That's a Airplane Mode reference.
That was a lovely reference to a very awful joke.
Nice. God awful joke.
Nice.
So yeah, Edison he created the first movie studio, aka the Black Maria. And it was like a black box thing where they could create stuff in darkness and add lights and do whatever they wanted. So he kind of came up with the concept of the movie studio. In 1888, a French guy named Louis Augustin Le Prince was working on a camera very similar to what they were doing in the States. And so he made some films of people dancing, but he mysteriously disappeared 2 years later. And some people think that Edison had something to do with it, that he hired some goons to kill this guy or to...
I was just going to make that joke.
What's that?
I was just going to say like, oh, Edison got him killed, obviously.
Yeah, he killed him.
Interesting. Well, shit.
So anyway, Edison and his team were like, they were super hardcore, but like movies are going to be like a big, big deal because at that time they were mostly just kind of novelties. Like there's kinetoscope parlors and you could go look at them at carnivals and stuff. So it was a wild time to be in the movie biz, if you want to call it that. They didn't even have the movie biz back then.
Well, it seems like it was the real Wild West, you know?
It truly
People
was.
Killing each other, CEOs, studio heads, if you will, killing each other over the competition. Pretty wild.
So anyway, that's all I wrote down for Fred Ott Sneeze. There's obviously so much more history, and like everything kind of connects to all of like the early cinema stuff really connects to this movie because I don't think that this is a particularly huge film in terms of the canon, but it's interesting, and it's one of the more famous films you see when you're learning about old film is just this dude sneezing for 5 seconds.
That's awesome. That was very informative. And it's interesting that film is in the DNA of the film I'm about to describe.
Yes, I know.
And I wish that Fred Ott's Sneeze was an hour and 20 minutes and Airplane Mode was 45 frames, but instead it's the other way around. And I had to sit through a whole movie that was unwatchable.
Hey, we both did.
Yeah, we both did. But you sped it up because you're smart. And I watched it at real speed. I felt like I slowed it down, like I was watching it at half speed. Anyways, so Airplane Mode, I believe came out in 2019. And it is a terrible film. It's directed by two people. So it was co-directed by David Dinetz, who is a Forbes top 30 under 30, which is interesting. And
that means he was super rich.
Yeah, he
grew up rich.
I think he was rich from the get-go, and then he started a production company, and that company was top 30 under 30 or something. But yeah, he made a bunch of money.
Yeah.
So he directed this along with Dylan Trussell, neither of which have notable credits. So I don't really understand.
What?
It was probably like everyone met at a house party in LA and then they made this movie.
Yeah.
It has the largest gathering of social media influencers in one film, which is interesting. Who do we have? It's a pretty extensive list. So we've got Logan Paul.
Yes.
Who got famous off of Vine, and then he was famous for doing the splits all over the world. He also got in trouble for doing the dab at the Olympics in Brazil.
Was he in the Olympics?
No, he went illegally and filmed illegally, dabbing in front of the Olympics. Also, one of the posters for this film is the film Airplane. It's their font and their graphic, but the plane is doing a dab. So both wings are doing a dab, and the front windows look like sunglasses. Anywho, okay, so we've got Logan Paul, Lauren Swick-Curd. I don't know who she is.
Neither do I.
Juan Pazarita, who is a social media person, Lily Pons, Andrew Batchelor, who goes by King Bach or Batch. Is it short for Bachelor, or is he trying to sound educated? I don't know. He's an influencer. We have Amanda Cerny or Kearney, Nick Bateman. We've got, those are the big ones. Casey Neistat makes a brief appearance, along with several others, like all of the staff. The airport scene when they're going through airport security is just riddled with cameos, like a ton of cameos. I can't name them, but I recognize them.
Recognize the hide your wife, hide your kids guy. He played the...
Yeah. He was famous on YouTube, right?
He was famous on YouTube.
It was a YouTube?
And then I did recognize Casey Neistat. I know who he is, but literally every other person, I was like, are these people famous? Because they're not introducing these people, and they're giving them no character development, and so they must be famous YouTubers.
The reason this film isn't interesting, and this is the first similarity between Fred Ott's Sneeze and this film, is everyone plays themselves and not a character. So say what you will about that, though, because you could argue your social media persona is a character and not really who you are. But in the film, everyone is their own name.
Right.
And Fred Ott plays Fred Ott.
Nice. So that was a good first similarity. Yeah, I had that one written down.
Thanks. It wasn't on my list. I just made it up. But anywho, so apparently collectively amongst all of the social media influencers in this movie, it's... collectively between all of them they have 600,000 followers or 600 million.
I'm gonna venture a who cares.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter, but anyways, this is the only film to have so many. It has the highest density of social media influencers in one film together.
Historic.
You could say that. Logan Paul produced it. He was one of the writers. He was one of the producers. He had a very heavy hand in the creation of this film. Obviously, he's starring in it as well. It was influenced by the film Airplane, and it steals a bunch of its jokes as well. So a fun thing you can do as a viewer is watch Airplane and then watch Airplane Mode. Even the title steals the name. I mean, over 50% of the name is another film's name. So this feels like a recycling bin. The whole movie does.
The plot is very similar. Gotta say, I think the plot of the original Airplane is pretty clever. Just that it's a disaster movie, but it's about people who just had some bad airplane food.
Yeah, absolutely.
This movie, similarly, I actually thought that the concept was pretty sound for what they were going for. Just the concept of like the entire synopsis is they're all going to a influencer convention or YouTuber convention, and then they get on a plane, and then the plane starts malfunctioning because nobody takes their phone off airplane mode.
Yeah.
And like, that's kind of clever. That's like a funny idea.
Well, so that's the plot, but it turns out that isn't the plot because that ambiguously Russian prankster who's a murderer, who's obviously a Hannibal Lecter ripoff.
Yes.
Said the whole thing was planned and there is no convention.
Right. It's a big prank.
So the film actually has a giant plot hole in it, which is interesting in and of itself. Because that doesn't make any sense, because it's either one plot or the other.
Yeah.
And they don't confirm either or. But anyways, so yeah, heavily influenced by Airplane. It steals a bunch of jokes. A lot of these influencers were previewing the film while they were making it. They were using Snapchat. They were using Instagram, blah, blah, blah. And they were also doing their YouTube vlogs while making the film. Casey Neistat crashed his drone while making the movie for his vlog. He was trying to film something and fucked up and crashed.
Oh, that would have been super insufferable if I was in that room. I'd have just been like, oh my God, this is so annoying. Everybody just like, hey guys.
I can only imagine, the crew and how irritated they would be.
Yeah, just a bunch of like grizzled old union dudes being like, I don't know.
Yeah, and all these like hot young influencers trying to film everything they do to like garner more followers and, build their audience. Infuriating, truly infuriating. So yeah, this film, to be honest, that's kind of all I had for info.
That's fine.
It was nominated as the worst YouTube original movie of all time. I don't know what that means because YouTube original hasn't been around very long, so it's a pretty short list of bad stuff.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that have been made for YouTube originals. PewDiePie probably has done something.
Yeah, probably.
The thing is, like, I watched a bunch of a couple of years ago. YouTube did a thing called YouTube Comedy Awards, where they basically had like a comedy show. It was all live streamed on YouTube, and they had a huge quantity of celebrities on it, like Norm Macdonald.
Oh shit!
Todd Glass, maybe Mark Maron was on it, although I don't understand why he would be on there. But they did this big comedy thing. So they had actual stand-ups hosting it, but then the people doing the comedy was YouTubers, and it was just so hard to watch because it was interesting. All of these people who have no like background in like live performance doing something that's essentially just live performance, like doing stand up, but they have no like sense of how to do that. So just taking them out of their element and forcing them to do something that they're not good at. I feel like that's what this movie was for 80 minutes.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's riddled with comedy bits, but not a single thing landed. I mean,
no, but the plane did.
Felt like it was written by people in the 7th grade. Like there's like just every joke felt adolescent. Like it opens with Logan Paul trying to masturbate, and then everyone keeps walking in on him, and it's like it's just like a Rolodex of introducing every character while he's trying to jack off, but it's not funny. It just doesn't work, and he keeps falling over. Ugh. And then
did you laugh at the part where the little bottle of lotion talked to him and had a cute little voice?
I didn't, but that's one of my similarities, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So buckle up. That's going to come out later. But
yeah, I
thought
no idea.
That was wild. The termite scene was also interesting. How they were filming a porno in the floorboards as termites. But again, I didn't think it was funny. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And everyone's bouncing and everything was so extreme. Like Logan Paul kept yelling at people. Everyone's jumping and telling him to like, shut the fuck up, stop being a loser, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I have termites. And then they fall through the floor. It just felt like it watching it, I felt like a single dad with 6 kids all screaming at a birthday party, and I was hosting a birthday party, and there were no other parents there, so I didn't have any help supervising these kids, and nothing that was being said or done made any sense emotionally. That's what the film felt like to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I felt like a babysitter. It was awful.
Yeah, it was chaotic for sure. It was chaotic evil.
I can't believe it won Best Picture at the Oscars last year.
Oh my God, yeah, I know.
Fuck me.
Yeah,
Crazy.
they read Parasite and they were like, whoops, wrong one. We did it 2 years in a row. Can't believe it.
Warren Beatty comes out, says the wrong movie.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. This is a terrible film, but YouTube is trying to get into the higher end production, so that's kind of neat.
I guess so, but I would say stay in your lane.
Tell that to Netflix. They were mailing DVDs, dude, and look at them. You know what I mean?
But YouTube it just changed the media landscape, so hugely. So it's weird for them to be like, all right, we got something that we perfected and we became the gold standard for this one thing. Let's make feature films with these terrible, terrible stars who are not interesting because they are good actors or they're funny. They're, well, I mean, I don't know why Logan Paul is interesting, but I'm an old man.
Well, he can do the splits.
Okay, right.
He's like famous for doing the splits. He does it twice in the movie.
He does do that. And I was wondering why that happened. I think he also was a MMA guy recently. He got into MMA.
Oh, what?
Yeah, and I think he only has lost. I don't think he's ever won. He just kind of gets walloped. So it's kind of, for people who don't like him, kind of a wonderful thing.
I guess.
Just seeing this guy get beat up. And he's always getting in trouble because he says and does insensitive things. As you can tell by half of the jokes in this movie are from like 1970 kind of comedy.
Well, it felt for such a contemporary film, the comedy is very antiquated. It felt just the joke like I hear gay people was crazy. That breastfeeding subplot with that actor whose name I can't remember but is in a lot of comedy movies. Yeah, like that was wild.
Yeah, the bottom of the barrel from the Adam Sandler family. That's what they got. So
yeah, and he's bad in it. Like the script is so bad, and it's just so homophobic. This movie. Yeah,
there was a wild amount of casual racism and homophobia, which I found to be not surprising because you can kind of just see Logan Paul for 5 seconds, the same amount of time you would watch Fred Sneeze, and realize, kind of who he is. Kind of, you can do an assessment of that guy and say, okay, yeah, he's probably the type of guy who would think it's funny to make these casual racism and casual homophobic jokes.
I don't know if it's on your list, Mike, but can I make a comparison that I just thought of?
Sure, yeah, jump right in.
Similar to Fred Sneeze, vloggers, social media influencers, what they do is they document their regular life, which is obviously amplified and exaggerated, but they document their regular life for the general public. And in a way, Fred Ott did that back in the 1890s by photographing himself sneeze by snorting snuff.
You are right. I mean? He's the original YouTuber.
He's the original vlogger. He is Casey Neistat of the 1890s.
Oh my goodness, you're right.
He wasn't doing the splits, but he was snorting snuff and fucking snarfing all over this 1890s kaleidoscope camera situation, whatever it was. Oh, yeah. Kinetoscope. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting.
You know that Logan Paul is also doing a lot of snuff, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, he must be. Yeah.
He must be.
He's doing the splits, so...
Yeah, so that's a good first similarity.
Thanks. And we're
just jumping right into it.
Yeah, I thought I would, what
that's a good idea. So yeah, Fred Sneeze is one of the first movies where somebody looks right down the barrel of the camera, like he acknowledges the camera.
Nice.
And this happens in airplane mode also. There's some
with the Skype
looking
calls.
into the camera. The Skype calls, but then also I feel like there's got to have been some. I can't think of any examples because I was watching it at 1.5 speed. I was watching it twice as fast. But there was definitely a few times where somebody looked at the camera and made a mug face.
Oh, for sure. If I may,
you may.
In a way, I don't know about you, but I've sneezed on Skype before and I've sneezed on Zoom. And in a way, that's what Fred Ott is doing like that's the 1897 equivalent or 1894 equivalent of Zoom.
Yeah.
It's like a conference call, and that's what Logan Paul does with his Australian girlfriend, who he's never met in person, which is interesting. Anywho,
and he drops like a ton of bricks like as soon as he gets to Australia because he found somebody else. Like you're supposed to sympathize for this guy and hope for his romantic longing, but then he just, as soon as he finds somebody else, he just drops his original girlfriend. So pretty wild. Yeah. To the point where he shows up at his house and sicks his Mexican roommate, his words, not mine, on her because he's a virgin. So he's still at her house, but he doesn't like show up there.
So if I may piggyback onto that, both movies have unlikable protagonists. Okay.
Oh,
so okay. Logan Paul, super unlikable. Fred Ott, in today's lens, to sneeze without covering your mouth is a huge faux pas.
Yeah.
Obviously, the global pandemic is a huge ingredient in that. And also just not covering your sneeze. Like in public education, they teach you how to sneeze so that in public, you're not spreading your mouth business all over other people. And so Fred Ottenway is a very unlikable protagonist within the 45 frames of his film. And Logan Paul is just a dipshit the whole movie.
Truly.
Yeah. So both have anti-heroes, if I may.
That's brilliant.
Thank you.
Both films would be very triggering kind of in the modern era because, watching a movie where someone sneezes, if someone sneezed near me, I'd be like, whoa, like it was a gunshot.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, like I haven't been on an airplane since January, and I probably won't be for like another couple months. So if that, so it might be more than a year. It might be a year and a half before I get on an airplane. So watching both films, definitely weird, give different vibes during the coronavirus times.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one, Mike. Nice.
Very
poignant.
Thank you.
If I may, so both films involve projectile. Okay. So Fred Ott sneezes, and obviously there's projectile coming from his nasal passageway as well as his mouth. He doesn't cover his sneeze, and some business comes out. And similar to that, the moisturizer bottle that Logan Paul uses to masturbate, and it's also an anthropomorphic character that can speak and move. When you squish it, a projectile comes out, which is moisturizer.
Yeah,
and the projectile is crucial to the plot, so that's kind of interesting. And no, fuck it. I'm not going to go any further with that one. I was just going to talk about masturbating for 5 minutes, but I don't think we need that.
No, okay. I'm just going to put my mic on mute. Go off, King. Just go off. See what do you got to say? What do you got to say?
So
no, you don't. No, don't.
Okay. Did you sense my hesitation? Oh boy. Yeah, we don't need to talk about. What could
you possibly have to say for 5 minutes?
I was going to draw comparisons between sneezing and ejaculating. Is what I was going to do. I have a diagram.
I feel like I would cut it out. I feel like okay.
I have a Venn diagram explaining the differences and the similarities between ejaculating and sneezing, okay? And how both are extremely satisfying and necessary. But obviously you don't want it, so let's just move on.
But yeah, on there, I can see on your graph there, it says your soul escapes. What do you think happens? What do you think happens when you masturbate?
Well, your soul escapes, right? It's similar to being, it's amazing that not only that Fred Ott sneezed on camera, but being photographed would steal your soul. Back in the 1800s, that was a thought. That was a common thought of people. And so a lot of people wouldn't get photographed until they were dead. And then they would do like post-mortem photos of their kids and stuff, which is interesting. So it's wild that he sneezed, lost his soul, was photographed, lost his soul again. That guy's like in major debt to the soul collector.
And I would say Logan Paul himself is missing a soul, it seems like.
Well, he sold it to Vine.
He sold it to Vine, right?
Yeah, and to his really elastic thighs. Because he can do the splits. He sold his soul to do the splits, basically.
Also, speaking of Vine, do you remember Vine?
Yeah, big time. I never did it.
How long were the videos in Vine? Just so I want to
7 seconds.
Exactly. Think about that.
Oh my God, Fred Sneeze is the first Vine. Oh shit!
Yeah, they both got famous from Vine or a Vine-like medium.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Holy shit! Fred Ott and that guy who directed it and shot it, as well as Edison, invented Vine and subsequently TikTok.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
I didn't think that it would go down this road. This was actually just a surprise to me that we actually made this connection, but it's so true because early movies are basically TikToks or Vines or whatever, where it's like people doing regular things or just showing off talents, dancing, sneezing.
Just walking sometimes.
Just walking.
Like walk and talk. Yeah.
Pretty interesting. The original, it came full circle in a way with new media.
Another thing about the full circle nature of it is at the time filming something was in its infancy with Fred Ott and Edison. And yet what they made was more compelling than what a lot of people are able to do with infinite technology and runtime and sort of a beautiful pictorial style. Like your cell phone can photograph something to such an extent that it looks incredible. Yet I would say a lot of it is trash. Whereas Fred Ott just having a huge sneeze and out of his schnoz on the camera looks cool. It's captivating. I watched it 7 times.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what's he holding in his hand? Do we see the sneeze or does the frame skip? There are little details I was really examining, but a lot of vlogs, I don't have time for that shit. I would never watch a vlog. So it seems like it's gone full circle. And as the technology gets better, the material deteriorates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's brilliant. Yeah, we did it.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So it's also speaking of 5 seconds as a length, hopefully 5 seconds, the length of Fred Ott Sneeze. It's Logan Paul's the amount of time he's famous. 5 seconds. Metaphor.
Well, it's too late for that, isn't it?
I know, yeah. But after this movie, how can you make this movie and say, "Oh, I'm going to have a career after this"? Maybe that's why he went into MMA, because he realized he didn't have much to offer in the YouTube world.
Right. Well, what's the phrase? 15 minutes of fame?
Yeah, 15 minutes of fame.
Well, Fred Ott Sneeze is a lot shorter than 15 minutes, so.
Yeah, interesting. Oh, both films I would describe them as chaotic entertainment involving bodily functions.
Go on. What does that mean?
Well, Fred Ott Sneeze is 5 seconds of a guy sneezing. That's like chaos coming out of your face. It's you can't control it. It's just it's a scary, loud thing, sneezing.
Yeah.
And then, you saw the movie. It's chaotic. It's loud. It's, just kind of a blast of snot to your face, but of comedy. With comedies in quotes here.
Yeah. Well, on that point, the chaotic nature, both films involve substance abuse that leads to a lot of the chaotic behavior. Fred Ott does snuff, which we've found out is a finely ground tobacco that you'd inhale, and it gives you an immediate shot of nicotine to the brain.
Yeah.
And in this film, you see many characters doing cocaine. There's two. This scene was wild, but two Chinese businessmen, one of which is doing coke and the other one is doing something else, like heroin or something. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But both films involve substance abuse, which is interesting.
Well, they were Japanese businessmen.
Use.
They were Japanese businessmen, or maybe one was Japanese, one was Chinese, because they derisively call one of them Yakuza, and then they call the other guy Jackie Chan. And Jackie Chan's from China, and Yakuza is Japanese. So,
oh my God. I don't even remember that joke, but that's so awful.
The thing is, I was watching it at 2 times speed, but I was also watching it with the subtitles on.
Oh,
so
smart.
I was basically speed reading this nightmare of a film. So,
and I was watching it at real time and barely listening to it and scrolling Instagram at the same time. So I feel like your system's much better.
Did you turn it off? Did you finish it?
Yeah, I watched it in 2 sittings. I watched the first hour and had to shut it off, and then I watched the last 20 minutes today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I saw the ending. Like, I saw the roommate have sex with the Australian girlfriend, and then the spider on his back when he jumps out the window because the dad walks in. It was it?
I mean, no, it wasn't a good callback.
You honestly mean that?
It was a callback.
Yeah. Okay.
Nobody can deny that this movie had a callback in it.
Sure. Yes. I'm just so upset about the movie that I don't even want to give it any credit. Its use of technique, even if it fulfilled it, I just don't even want to acknowledge it.
I love that some movies will just make you uncomfortable or make you just feel terrible. I love that.
It felt like watching this movie felt like I just drank 2 liters of Coca-Cola and then was violently ill. Like, I just poisoned my body and then immediately paid the price for it. It was just so unpleasant. The whole thing was unpleasant.
Is this worse than LaQuisha?
I think so. Yeah, I do. I think it's a worse film. Yeah. Yeah, I really hated this movie.
Did you notice there's a couple of characters with mustaches in airplane mode, and they looked like Fred Ott a little bit?
Yes. That was my other. Oh, I had to actually. And facial hair was very prevalent in both films. The pilots both had mustaches, right? Or one of them did. One of the pilots looked like Fred Ott. Fred Ott obviously looks like Fred Ott.
Also, the Australian guy from the Australian airport controller guy.
Who puts a koala in a burlap sack and punches it?
Yeah.
That was an unlikable character, let me tell you. I really did not like him.
Yeah, I mean, which character was likable? Which character was?
The airplane.
Good, yeah.
The airplane didn't do anything wrong.
I thought the baby was cute.
The baby, for me, was tarnished by the characters surrounding said baby.
Okay, fine.
The whole subplot with the guy who you called endearingly the bottom feeder of the Adam Sandler comedy or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
His character was my least favorite of the whole film.
I thought he was the funniest character because he was the only one who had. But he was the only one with comedic chops, though, in the film. You could tell.
That's true.
He knew how to deliver a joke.
He definitely punched in and punched out. He did his job.
Yeah.
He was handed nothing. The script was unbearable to start off with, and I know that's not his fault, but he also said yes to this movie, which is his fault.
Mm-hmm.
I hated literally everything about his character. I was upset and disgusted by the semen scene at the end when the mom comes and she says, "I can't find my baby." And he says, "Why don't you get a new baby?" Just before I thought we'd die, I quickly ejaculated into this Tupperware.
Yeah.
Here you are. Here's good semen. And then she's like, "But I'm going to miss my old baby." And he says, "You're ungrateful." And then he drinks his own semen and gets an erection. That to me, that's on you as an actor. To say, I'm not going to fucking say these lines. That's on you,
I feel
man.
like, you know what I think happened? I think that, this is more time than anybody has spent on this movie probably thinking about this one scene. But yeah. I think he was given like much less to work with, and he improvised that entire little monologue because that was the only part that I kind of like laughed at when he drank his own semen. And he was like, "I can feel it going back into my penis." Like that was actually a funny line.
Getting hard. And he screams while sitting in an ambulance or whatever.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you perceive the scene that way because I didn't.
But I only could enjoy it because I gave it some backstory that I devised myself.
Even if you were in an awful film, would you improvise that material? You are an improviser. You've been paid to improvise. You're a very funny man. You're very quick-witted.
Do you think I've been paid to improvise?
I've paid you to improvise.
What?
Just kidding.
When?
I haven't. That was a lie.
Okay.
That was a dirty lie. I was going to make a joke about how you were the improv performer at my bar mitzvah, but I didn't follow through on the joke.
Yeah, Bob, everybody knows that you had a furry themed bar mitzvah where everybody dressed up like their furry
a furry foot,
character.
specifically furry feet. So like webbed feet, love them, love them. Duck's feet, love them. I like ungulate feet, the whole shebang. Get me there. I was 13. Whatever. Just figuring my business out.
So let's go back to some similarities. Well, because we always seem to go down Bob has some weird fetishes. We always seem to go down that road.
I wonder why, Mike. I wonder why.
Because you do. So the next, both films are about air circulating through a small tube.
Oh my God, that is so good. What a great
Thank you.
comparison, Mike.
Yeah, that's what an airplane is. It's like a tube with recirculated air. And there's also a part where the plane door opens and everybody is flying around and there's this crap flying around. Mm-hmm. It felt like you were watching the inside of a nose.
Absolutely. And both films have really heavy bodily function focuses. Fred Ott sneeze, tons of sneezing. Obviously, the whole film's predicated on a sneeze. And
100% of the movie is sneezing.
Everyone vomits. There's vomit everywhere. Like, literally, almost every character vomits. And you see it. And they're just covered in vomit. So both films have, like, the projectile bodily function kind of situation.
Yeah, and well, also in airplane mode, Logan Paul, the main character, playing himself, sneezes. Do you remember that?
Oh, my God.
He does sneeze when he snorts at that joke. Snort, also known as the snuff.
Wow.
So there you go. These are identical films.
There are eerie similarities. But I mean, one is like one of the foundations of cinema. So it makes sense that you'd find Fred Ott sneeze written all over this Logan Paul magnum opus. Also,
I would say like YouTubers and early cinema are novelty based. Like early stuff like Fred Ott sneeze would have been like a novelty film for people to watch. Like, I can't believe I watched a movie with someone sneezing on it, similar to a train coming at me, or just seeing some people dancing, or, old timey erotic films. But,
sorry, can you say that one more time for me?
Old timey erotic films.
Just a little slower.
Old timey erotic films.
Now 1.5 times faster.
Oh yeah. Old timey erotic films.
Great. Thank you.
So yeah. And, I would say YouTubers are novelties. They're going to be forgotten. They're just kind of, and they're going to a YouTuber convention, which is like things like the kinetoscope would have been seen at like novelty conventions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's that. Also Logan Brothers, Lumiere Brothers, history rhymes.
Wow. No kidding. Edison had a brother.
Did he?
No, I have no idea. Maybe.
Logan Edison. I would say the both movies are also like the idea of comedy face is present in both movies. So do you know what comedy face is?
No, what is that?
It's a term that nobody says, but it's like a kind of a term that I use in our comedy community or in my sketch group. Mm-hmm. But anyway, comedy face is basically just mugging.
Oh, okay.
So YouTubers, if you ever go on YouTube, I mean, they play everything to 11 for some reason. Mm-hmm. But then also, if you look at any screen grab or like thumbnail on a YouTube video, it's always somebody doing like the most grotesque, like huge face. So the thumbnail is always just someone being like, or making these gigantic, really exaggerated faces. All throughout airplane mode, people make big, exaggerated faces to sell a joke.
It's true.
Feels kind of desperate, gotta say. But Fred Ott sneeze, all 5 seconds of it is just him like doing a big comedy face. He's making a big exaggerated face.
And apparently he was a real trickster and like the in-house comedian at the Edison business place.
Really?
And similar, yeah, I read that about him. So similarly, influencers and vloggers are always trying to make interesting things, and they're always riffing and making jokes. And he was similar to that.
Logan Paul has done a lot of he's done a lot of prank videos.
So Logan Paul and Fred Ott have a lot in common.
They do, yeah. They do a lot of mean-spirited kind of comedy videos, I think.
They both have first names for first names and last names as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because you got true. Logan and Paul, both first names, and you got Fred and Ott, and you could argue those are both first names as well.
Yeah, Ott, short for otter.
Yeah, or Otto, or Ottman, Ottoman. Lots of options for first names.
That is true. Is Fred Ott, is Ott short for otter? Yeah. I have one last kind of connection, and it's a strange one.
Ooh,
So
what is it?
It ties the two films into the television show, the Canadian television show Murdoch Mysteries.
Okay.
So there's a scene in Murdoch Mysteries where one of the characters, so they actually watch Fred Ott sneeze in Murdoch Mysteries because it's set in the old-timey times.
And as you said earlier, it's public domain, so easy peasy, pop it in there.
Exactly. So in Murdoch Mysteries, they watch Fred Ott sneeze, and I think the main character or one of the main characters says he hates Fred Ott sneeze because he thinks it's vulgar entertainment, especially compared with Shakespearean theater.
Wow.
And I would say that description, like if you swapped out Fred Ott sneeze for airplane mode and the characters of Murdoch Mysteries were watching airplane mode, they would describe it the same. I would say it's vulgar entertainment.
Wow. Holy shit. That is great.
Yeah.
So really what they were in their time period is the same. Like what airplane mode has done for us in our time period is the same as Fred Ott sneeze in the 1890s.
Yeah, amazing stuff, huh?
Shout out to Murdoch Mysteries too. I mean, wow, Canadian staple. Great totally. Show. Yeah.
I know that there's a lot of crossover between the Kanines and Murdoch Mystery fans, or dockers. They like to be called. They love docking.
Dockers.
They're like, hey, you guys want to come over to my party and do some docking? And that just means we're going to watch Murdoch Mysteries.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I actually just watched an episode, the last 5 minutes of an episode of Murdoch Mysteries recently with my dad.
Oh, goodness,
hadn't seen one
really?
in years. The show's been on for like 14 years. Crazy.
And how was it?
It was fine. It's a solid show.
Sure, yeah. It's fine.
Yeah, it's very wholesome.
I bet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings us to the end of our similarities. Like there's a lot more than I expected, actually. We kind of did a full epi's worth, which is good.
Yeah, that's impressive. I think it's fun to change it up.
Well, this was a good bit of cinema history.
It was, absolutely.
And also both films are like on either end of cinema history, kind of like we're right here in 2020 with Logan Paul, and this is what movies are being made.
Mm-hmm.
Like YouTubers are trying to make the jump to movies because that's the next jump for some reason. Like
if I may, one last similarity perhaps is both people are on the precipice of a new movement. Mm-hmm. So Fred Ott is on sort of the absolute jumping off point of like what cinema is about to become.
Yeah.
And influencers, I think, are hitting this point where they're realizing they need to do something more in order to expand. So both are at crucial points of expansion.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
I don't know if the viewers can, and by viewers I mean listeners, can see my hands, but I'm doing some really nice finger work explaining the expansion point of both of these people. Logan Paul obviously wanted to expand from doing squats in a suicide forest or whatever, and instead wants to make film, make cinema, be Orson Welles. And Fred Ott, this was an invention. This was the birth of something, and it was the breeding ground for what would become a new art form.
Oh my God! I just had the opposite of a brain fart, a brain sneeze.
What is it?
Thematically linked, I guess.
A brain jizz?
Yes. So Fred Ott, he starred in this movie, but he starred in another movie called Fred Ott Holds a Bird.
Mm-hmm.
Who is the animal companion of Logan Paul, but a bird. He holds a bird.
Right. Oh my God.
Isn't that weird?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Basically, we have this kind of cinema is a Mobius strip.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah. Or time is a Mobius strip, or I guess time is it's a kinetoscope. It's just kind of like looping, or a zoetrope, I guess is a zoetrope is looping.
And it's interesting. Zoetrope was the birth of Vine.
Yeah.
Because it was repeated footage.
Yeah.
And Vine is like a repeated 7-second clip. So there's so many similarities here. You really see the birthing ground of what would become just degenerate entertainment.
Well, is history repeating itself? Because back then you were watching looping videos on like a small kind of screen. Like Zoetrope
Well, you had
was
the
a small little
Zoetrope, you had
screen.
Nickelodeons, which were also looping. There were lots of ways to watch looping things. And I guess maybe what it comes down to is human beings love to watch repetitive action.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Fuck me. Wow. I feel like we're breaking ground here.
Did we unlock cinema by watching these two
have.
films? We just figured it out. Yeah, we figured out cinema.
We broke film a little bit.
You know what's wild about Fred Sneeze?
What?
When I was doing research on it, D.W. Griffith was still like, he was like a teenager. You know, Charlie Chaplin was very young. What's his face? Buster Keaton probably wasn't born yet. But like so Fred Sneeze is like old timey cinema, like pretty much the birth of cinema era where you were just watching one thing happen, or watching a loop of something happen. Yeah. But then like Charlie Chaplin, like that kind of era, they made some pretty cool movies like shortly after film was devised. Like the way that cinema grew so quickly over such a short amount of time, like 20 years, like all of the progress it was made in those years, even from just cinema not existing to existing to sound being a thing, was like not that long. But think about what's happened in the last 30 years of cinema since like now, from like airplane mode to like 1990, like not a whole lot's happened. It's pretty much like since Jurassic Park, like not a whole lot's happened.
Can I play devil's advocate?
No.
I think. Oh, okay. This has been from Justin McCain. Good night, everybody.
That's the end of the epi. Bye.
The exact same can be said about Logan Paul and all these other motherfuckers in this movie, because social media was born in like when did Nexopia and MySpace come out? Like the mid 2000s or something?
Yeah, like MySpace, it's firmly embedded as the year 2006, but I don't know. It could have been before and after that for me.
And the all these people would have been youngins at that point. And so from that point, they were like trailblazers in inventing what social media could become. And by virtue of that, like what influencing became, you know, they took advantage of these things and they expanded upon them the same way that these filmmakers did back in the 19-teens and 1920s. Obviously, some is better than others, but
obviously,
you know, the same thing could be said. I'm just trying to say, I'm trying to back up my homie Logan Paul. He's a trailblazer. I love him. I love his work. Just have to say that.
They're both interesting because I guess Fred Ott, just like he just happened to work for Edison. So he was kind of plucked out of obscurity of just being some regular dude with a mustache who loved snuffing.
Snuffing and schnarfing.
Yeah, snuffing. He loved to snuff and snarf. So he was just kind of plucked from like a kind of obscurity to like now he's part of film history. He's part of history, right?
Yeah.
Similarly,
so is Logan Paul.
Modern YouTubers is like, who knows what's going to catch on? They're all the same. They're all just screaming at the camera. They're all just watching movie trailers and reacting to things, you know, whatever. Like, like who knows what's going to catch on? It's all just kind of chaotic nonsense. And the, audience decides. Doesn't mean the audience has good taste, but the audience decides what. So like, yeah, Logan Paul, the Paul brothers. I mean, they seem like they were rich before they got famous, but yeah, they're just kind of plucked out of nowhere, and now we have to deal with them. Similar to how people had to just like, I hate watching that guy sneeze when they watched Fred Sneeze. But a lot of those people turned around when they saw the sequel where he holds a bird, and they're like, I love the way he holds that bird. So
tender, so loving.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like they're the same film.
Oh, they're 100% in the same movie,
Deep down, the DNA really, the bones are the same.
Well, they were both probably the same resolution.
And they're both comedies.
Yeah. Cinema was like essentially 4K resolution way back in the day.
That's true.
Or film is, I guess. It's like,
well, apparently celluloid is like 8K to 12K, supposedly.
Isn't that wild?
With the scanning.
It's like you can see like a 12K movie on film, technically, if we're just looking at things in terms of K. And at one point they're like, you know what? Tired of watching this like kind of infinite like level of size in terms of blowing something up. I'm going to just go back to the beginning, and then it's all going to be digital. And then, we only got up to like 4 and 8K this last couple of years. So we're just slowly like building it up again in the digital realm. But it's only, it's measurable. It's measurable though, whereas film is like a little bit more kind of like loosey goosey.
Yeah, absolutely. That is weird. Yeah. It's a weird like regression technologically, but also with that, there were many advancements. But when you shoot on film, this is sort of a sidebar to this whole episode, but when you shoot on film, you end up editing it digitally. You end up color grading it like it's raw. The film is almost the least important part of the whole thing. The amount of shit and manipulation going on afterwards really detracts from the use of film, and film is so expensive.
Is Christopher Nolan is he a dum-dum? Because he insists on being like, film is the most important thing to shoot movies on. I assume that's how he talks. Is he British?
Charles Dickens. He is. Yeah, he is British.
Yeah. Okay. So Chris Nolan, I call him Chris. So Chris Nolan like insists on like shooting on film, but it's like, he's just going to edit it digitally. It's not like he's got a Steenbeck going, just like chopping the thing up, staying late at night with his like editor as they're just like cutting these films and whatever. It's like, he just goes into the digital realm immediately after he films it on film. So, and then he makes us go to the movie theater, get COVID while we are watching his movie, and he only makes $20 million off of it. So he only made $20 million bucks.
I don't know. Has Tenet done well box office wise?
No, I just said he only made $20 million.
Only 20?
Yeah, I mean, of course.
I'm sure that movie costs like what, 160?
I bet it was between $200 and $400 million, all budget, like things considered, like advertising and whatnot. Actually, that's probably crazy. Less. I think they're advertising movies less now because people aren't really going to the movies.
Yeah. You know what's fucked up about Christopher Nolan is he's really a proponent of shooting IMAX on film. So not digital IMAX, but celluloid IMAX. And you get like 2 minutes a mag.
That's wild.
2 minutes. Yeah. And it's so expensive. It's just crazy, Is he just showing off? Is he like, look what I can do?
Well,
you can make $20 million at the box office, Mike, and shoot 2-minute mags of IMAX film.
Maybe this is a conspiracy or something. Not an actual conspiracy theory, but there's like a theory that Tenet, it wasn't that Christopher Nolan wasn't insisting on it being released. It was that the studio wanted to take the biggest tentpole movie they kind of had and just experiment and see if it would like work, if people would come out and see it.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it wasn't that Chris Nolan really wanted it to come out. It was that the studios wanted to put this movie out just to see if people would go and see a movie of this scale. Like if blockbusters could work, because everybody kind of canceled their movies or put them on streaming. It's going to be good because in October, Blumhouse is putting all their new movies on Amazon. So the movies that haven't even come out, they're just putting them all out in October. All their new horror movies.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so...
And they make great horror movies too, so that's pretty cool.
That's kind of cool. Like I kind of like this new paradigm that's happening as a result of this coronavirus thing.
Yeah.
And they also, another good news I think that's happening as a result is that the internet has decided to erase all Logan Paul based content in October. So we could be so lucky if we could be so lucky.
Soon you'll only find Logan Paul on the dark net. Dark web? What's it called? Dark web.
The dark web. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
like
cool.
Anybody would look for one thing that I thought was interesting about this movie is he's a YouTuber.
Yeah.
So like, who are his fans? Probably kids.
Yes.
But the movie was way too crass, way too like.
It's R-rated.
Yeah, it's R-rated. So it's like, who is the audience for this movie? It can't be adults because the comedy is just not. It's very juvenile.
Yeah, I think they're really gunning to have the same sort of vibe as Airplane. Because Airplane has some pretty awful jokes in it that are just not funny. But there are a lot of great jokes too. And I think they're trying to like walk this line and it just didn't work.
It's weird to take one of the best comedies and say, I'm going to make this movie. I'm going to remake it or I'm going to make it in my image, which is, breaking one of the commandments.
Yeah, one of the 17 commandments. Thou shalt not spoof Airplane.
And that thou shalt not sneeze on film. So both films break the 17 commandments. And also, thou shalt not eat lobster between bread. That's one of your rules, remember?
Oh, yeah. No, it's amazing. I couldn't remember that because that's like my number one rule.
It's your number 2 rule.
You can only eat lobster. You know, it's funny. I was actually just watching How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days last night, and there's a very good scene with Matthew McConaughey and Jennifer Hudson.
Jennifer Hudson, she's the one with the snotty nose and cats.
Oh,
among other things. She was in
my God,
Dreamgirls,
what's her name? Not Jennifer Hudson. What is it?
Kate Hudson?
Kate Hudson.
Wrong
Let me just quickly look it up. Yeah, I was watching that, and their first date, they eat lobster, and guess what?
What?
It's not between bread. They just eat straight up fucking lobster, how it should be eaten. So the rule applies to that film, and that's why it's one of the best rom-coms ever made.
Well, I realized, because the last week's episode, I mentioned that I had eaten lobster in a sandwich.
Yes.
And and then that's when you name your rule. If people are hardcore from Justin the Kane fans, aka Kanines, you will notice that there was a continuity error because I had previously eaten lobster in a when I was working on Christmas in Wonderland. We went and had lobster dinner on the West Edmonton Mall. Anyway, I just wanted to fix that correction there.
It's funny
to
you
address
say
that correction.
I'm reading a ton of emails right now, Mike, and the people are pissed. So I'm glad you brought that up, and you just had to clarify it because, I mean, you know,
we're getting a lot of emails from the Kanines just barking at us. Yeah, there's just like I just was going through. There's just so many emails. It's just like bark, 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 and I just have to delete. Leave us alone, Kanines.
And they only bark when they're upset, not when they're happy.
Yeah,
they do a tail wagging gif when they're happy, and a bark when they're upset. So. Thank you for clarifying that, Mike, because I was really.
I know a lot of people were angry about it.
Yeah,
getting a lot of tweets about it. But so I think I don't know. I think that kind of is the end of this episode. Unless you have anything you want to say about
like another
Logan
45
Paul.
minutes of riffing to go.
Oh, okay.
I'm just joking. God, that would be awful for everyone involved.
Yeah. So that was a good epi. Like, really shows that we can do anything. If anything, this has been an inspirational episode for both of us because taking Fred Out Sneeze and a Logan Paul, I don't know, I assume straight to VOD movie.
Well, it just went straight to YouTube. So, another fact actually is they shopped it around at the 2018 TIFF.
Oh.
So the film supposedly was made in 2016 and it came out in 2019 or 2020 and it was shopped around in 2018 and I'm pretty sure no one bought it. That's an assumption based on my personal taste, but
I would not be
from
surprised.
what I read, it seems like it was unsold.
It does seem like a pre-Trump movie. Like it wouldn't have been made during the Trump era because there was just like an innocence about the whole thing.
It's wild that there's like a 4-year turnaround on this movie because they probably filmed it in 7 days.
Yeah.
And then they were like, well, let's just put it in the can and sit on it for 4 years and try to sell this sucker. And since then, like, I'm assuming Logan Paul has just like slowly moved into obscurity. I don't know. I don't follow anyone like him on social media.
No, he's doing the MMA thing. He's, you know what actually happened to him?
What?
There's footage of, like police helicopters trying to they basically surrounded his house because I think he was selling illegal weapons. I think he was doing gun running or something like that. But then also,
oh my God.
Or it may have been related to him being involved in or throwing some sort of party in like the age of COVID where you're not supposed to have parties.
Oh,
it was related to one of those two things. But there's footage of him his house being surrounded. And he has a gigantic, ugly mansion, and you can see like this like AR-15 or something, a gun like that, just sitting right beside his hot tub.
Wow. So he's had some legal trouble.
Oh, yeah, that's putting it lightly. But similarly, Fred Ott, also during the 1918 plague, he also had some bumping parties too.
The dude loved to party.
Yeah, well, that's why he's always snuffing, man.
Always snuffing.
Always snuffing, never not snuffing. That's his motto. His second motto is don't eat lobster between 2 pieces of bread.
That's my motto.
Oh, right. That's your motto. The thing you say all the time.
I do say it all the time.
Yeah.
I brought it up several times this episode, so that proves how often I use it. Well, yeah, I guess this has been our episode.
Yeah, it has been.
What a great sign off. So this has been from Justin and Kane. I'm Bob.
I'm Mike.
And don't eat lobster between bread. And if you have to sneeze, cover it up, please. And if you're an influencer and you feel like you can write and star in a movie, think twice.
Yeah.
I think that's the lesson. We should start having a lesson to take away from.
That's a good idea. Okay, so that's a good episode ending. Yeah.
Yeah, let's start having a lesson to every episode because we learned a lot this episode.
We did learn a lot.
Cover your damn mouth and nose when you sneeze. And as an influencer, think twice before taking other ventures because it might backfire and you'll have to end up fighting in MMA and potentially gun running and also hosting crazy house parties like you're the fucking Great Gatsby during a global pandemic.
Anyway, thanks for listening, people. Stay tuned for next week. We're going to be doing we're entering the month of October, so we'll be doing some spooky episodes.
Yeah. We're going to get scary.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye.